What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to a gauntlet of Pay-Per-Viewpoint episodes of Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast this week. And we're going to start off with AEW All in Texas. We are breaking down everything that we know currently on Tuesday afternoon for this pay-per-view and what we think is going to happen, what we're excited about, what we're not excited about, so on and so forth. We're going to go through a whole other list of pay-per-views as well, but this episode is particularly just dedicated to All In. So this is all your AEW discussion for this. And if you don't know who we are, I am Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Rob DeFleece.
Hello.
And I am currently sick. So if you hear a very stuffy nose, or you hear me sniffling, or clear my throat, or coughing, I apologize in advance. Hopefully by the next set of recordings, we will have that cleared up. I highly doubt it, especially because we're probably going to record another one of these after NXT tonight. So, apologies in advance for that kind of stuff. But anyway, let us know what you have to say about all these different things that we will discuss by leaving a comment below on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, make sure you also ring your notification bell. Get that email alert set up for the live post show immediately following, I would say normally every one of these pay-per-views, but instead of it being that case, since they're doing all these, one at the same time as the other and then run right after another and all that, the game plan is we are going to be doing a post-show following Saturday night's events. So all three of those, and then one on Evolution on Sunday. So make sure you do have your email alert set up. Make sure that you also hit the like button. It helps us out quite a bit. Share this around by clicking the share button, or just, taking the URL and posting it somewhere. Post it on Reddit, message boards, Discord servers, etc., etc. We have our own Discord server if you're interested in joining that. That's a great place for you to chat it up and just share some memes or just get some other opinions about stuff. And, midway through the week, just be like, oh man, that was a great episode of TNA, or, look at this funny story that's going out, or whatever it might be. Love the Discord community over there. Join that. Make sure that if you are on YouTube, though, double check that you are subscribed to this channel. And also, if you want to help us out on the monetary side of things, there's a thanks button. There's also a join button. It's the exact same thing as Patreon. The only difference being that it's on YouTube rather than Patreon. And you can get access to that stuff a little bit quicker because it's a little bit easier to upload stuff to YouTube than it is to Patreon. And we only do the live things. If it's like the live Darkcast, it's only live on YouTube. So I recommend the YouTube side of it more than the Patreon, but if you want to support us in either way, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. Same as Redbubble and TeePublic for any kind of merchandise you want to pick up. That all goes a long way. So, AEW All In Texas, we currently have about 10 or so matches that are announced for this card, and as I mentioned before, this is Tuesday afternoon, 3 o'clock. So there will, of course, be another episode of Dynamite, and there will also be another episode of Collision that could change the card in some fashion, or at the very least, we know that there will be at least one more addition to the card because they haven't announced anything for any of the 0 hour content. And it's highly, highly unlikely that they will have a 0 hour that does not have some kind of pre-show matches. So we have some titles that aren't being defended yet. We have some more clarification about people that should be in the Casino Gauntlet matches. We could get some tweaks to the card if they want to add some new stipulations or anything. Anything that happens over Dynamite, and well, I guess not Collision because we will be recording the hot tags ahead of time, but anything at least that happens that we learn after this podcast, we will be addressing on the hot tags, along with the ROH Supercard of Honor predictions and the Saturday night's main event predictions as well. That's going to be a loaded episode of the hot tags. So these 10 or so matches that we currently have now, very quick rundown of the card, just to give you a sense of where we're going here. We got a tag team match between Swerve, Strickland, and Will Ospreay against the Young Bucks. We got a TNT title match, men's and women's Casino Gauntlets, 3-way for the tag team titles, the unified title match, the women's world title match, and the AEW world title match. That's a Texas Death match. Generally speaking, I think that out of all the events that we've got going on this weekend, ROH, Evolution, NXT, All In, Saturday night's main event, this is definitely winning the most interesting and overall best card. And there's, I think, no comparison between them. Evolution is probably my number 2, but I think it's even a distant number 2. Pretty sure you guys agree, right?
Well, there should be no conversation because this is this company's WrestleMania, and I know it's a different company, but like you wouldn't realistically be like, well, but Bloodsport is gonna wipe the floor with WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania. Like even if you hate WWE, you're like, well, that's clearly the biggest show of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, there is very little comparison between this. This is going to be, and this is a show that's had plenty of build up to it because it's been a big gap between Double or Nothing and this. I think that just the matches, the quality of the matches itself just speaks for itself, really. They've just got so much talent. There's so much exciting stuff to be discussed here. It's going to be in the biggest stadium with the biggest crowd. So, yeah, I don't think that there's any show that's going to, as long as what we see on paper translates into performances on the night, I don't think that there's any doubt that this will be the show of the weekend.
And I don't think that WWE is doing a good enough job of putting things opposite to it that people would actually be drawn to the other things either. Like, there's a lot of great talent, of course, in WWE. Like, even looking at the card for like Great American Bash, like, yeah, like, Jordan Grace, great. But she's in a tag team match that matters nothing whatsoever. Yoshiki and Amora, you think people are really going to be like, I got to watch that match against Obafemi rather than watching, I don't know what would be opposite of it at this point in time because we don't know the lineup of like which is going to come first and second, but like you're going to pay more attention to Inamura against Obafemi or the men's casino gauntlet. I'm pretty sure that most people are going to be, unless you're like just a WWE person, and there are plenty of those out there, and there are plenty of the opposite side of the spectrum that no matter what card AEW would have presented, they would have been watching the AEW card over the WWE one. But I think if you're a fan that can watch both, I can't imagine you're going to be like, nah, I'm going to go with, the Inamura Femi match as opposed to Okada Omega or whatever. And I guess WWE just cared more about putting something out there than actually putting like the biggest types of matches possible. But they're paling in comparison, and that is going to be carried over into our discussions about the other things too. But
but it's like, bear with me here, but it's like if you're playing Mario Kart and you're just way in the back and you're like, well, I got to do something. So you throw a green shell and then the shell ends up hitting you. And then it's like, what the fuck did you do? You did nothing. This is a waste of everybody's time. I really wish we weren't counter-programming everything. Because even the idea, like, look, as somebody who works covering these things, even the idea that I have to potentially focus on anything other than this card pisses me off.
Oh yeah, same thing. Like I
want to watch the show.
There's something to be said about how, and we talk about this once in a while about like how you and I have to cover shows as opposed to like Callum's in a position where thankfully he has a much better job than we do in a lot of different ways. He's a real boy. We're fake, but exactly. Callum can just watch this and just watch this. And technically speaking, I guess we could just be like, no, we're going to do other kinds of job positions, we do whatever and all that. But point being, I'm going to do live coverage for all of these. So I'm going to be watching all of it at the same time. And that's going to force me to have to watch certain elements when I do or don't want to. And there are going to be parts where a good match, like, say, the Moxley and Page match, like I'm sure at some point during that match I'm going to have to divert my attention away from that to post the news that such and such happened at Saturday Night's Main Event or something along those lines, whatever it might be. And that sucks because I would rather these be split up and for me to be able to actually have my attention on it. But then at the same time, as somebody that works with this stuff in mind, there is something to be said about I don't mind when it's certain events. Like, I don't care that ROH is going to be happening at the same time as SmackDown. I'm going to pay so little attention to ROH that it's perfectly fine for it to be at the same time. And I'm going to be barely paying attention to SmackDown at the same time, too. So it just sucks that All In is going to have some of its attention diverted from it, because I'd rather it be more like a WrestleMania situation where I could just watch this show. And I hope that doesn't really ruin some of the fun of All In, because it is more of a match-based thing. And I could easily not watch Saturday night's main event and just see clips and get a full sense of the show. But if you don't pay attention to the matches in AEW, you're missing the actual entertainment value, because it's all in ring. And if I'm diverting my attention midway through Adam Cole versus Kyle Fletcher, I might end up being like, oh, I didn't really see much in that match that was really interesting. And it could be just literally because at that same time I was writing news reports and I missed all these cool moves. And that sucks. So I'm disappointed in that. But I'm going to be trying to pay more attention to this than anything else. So anyway, all that preamble aside, let's get into like our predictions and everything. I guess we should address the what ifs that we don't know yet. Are there any matches that you guys think will be added to this card in particular, or do you think that we're going to get more so the 0 hour just has, you know, this person against that person or something?
It's hard to really it's hard to really predict based solely on the Gauntlet matches, really, because we don't know how many people are going to be in those matches. We don't know how long they're going to last. What people we have an idea of the people that might be involved based on the qualifying matches that they had recently. We know 3 definite participants for the men's. We only know 1 at the moment for the women, but we know that there'll be another one based on the qualifying match on Dynamite.
Did we know 3 for the men? I thought we only knew 2 technically. Briscoe and MJF.
Mr. Coase also has announced that he's going to be. Like I say, he might not come out because based on the. I assume he will, but that he said that he's put his name forward for the Casino Gauntlet. So expect Mr. Coase to come out at some point. But yeah, I say there is a lot of flexibility when it comes to that. So it just depends, because it almost like. I mean, I guess you are going to put some matches on the 0 hour, because you should do, because if you're going to have an hour and a half, 2 hour long or whatever kickoff show, you need to have some matches on it to make it there's just not a load of talking for ages and ages. But that kind of dilutes a little bit from because both Gauntlet matches, because if you have, I don't know, say, like Queen Aminata versus Julia Hart, for instance, or something on those lines on the 0 hour, that means you're probably unlikely to see them in the Gauntlet match. So it's not impossible, but it's a case of you don't really want to get rid of so many possibilities to make sure that there is some surprise and intrigue going into those matches.
And you also don't want to put matches on the pre-show that are, I mean, I'm not going to necessarily call out specific people off the top of my head, but like somebody like a Blake Christian from ROH is not as big of a deal as somebody who is in AEW, like a Daniel Garcia, where you're like, all right, well, they probably wouldn't be in the Gauntlet match over a Garcia. But if you throw too many people in the pre-show that are just on that lower end of the rung, and then you don't end up incorporating those other people into the Gauntlet, it's going to be a little bit weird to be like, well, then why was this person why was Preston Vance and the fraternity people on the pre-show, but Big Bill and Brian Keith weren't, or something? You know what I mean? Like, there's a delicate balance there. Somebody like the Outrunners could totally be on the pre-show, and I don't think that's going to throw anybody off. Yeah.
Tag teams are kind of like the bigger possibility, just because you're not going to have a singles guy, like you're not going to have one of the Outrunners being Casino Gauntlet, so you can throw a tactic. And I would be very happy to see them, if considering how well that match with FTR went on the recent Collision. I'd be fine if they did a rematch of that on the 0 hour. I'd say one match that I don't think will be on the 0 hour, but will be on the main card that hasn't been announced yet. I think they'll do something for the Trios Championships. I'm imagining it will be the Ops against Claudio, Wheeler, and someone else. So I don't know what Pac's situation is. Presumably it won't be him. In which case, you might get Gabe Kidd over,
maybe,
to be the trio of that team, or find someone else. I think that depending on where things are going, I think, and how I kind of perceive things might happen in the future, I could see Jack Perry coming in to be the third guy, because I still think that Jack Perry is going to join the Death Riders eventually. So, but either way, I think there will be some kind of trios match which will pit, because Claudio cut that promo on Collision, basically saying they're coming after the trios championship. So I imagine that match will be made for All In some form or another.
Yeah, and they're all such big names that it would be really weird to not have them and not have the championship on the card in some fashion.
Yeah, I imagine it'll probably just be Pac. I feel like he might be ready to go. Because if it was going to be Gabe Kidd, I kind of wish they would have kept him in the fold. He did sort of, I understand why, other commitments, obviously, but he did just sort of like disappear a little. And it felt like there was more to his story. There's also the fact that we haven't seen shit from Hook since like really turning down the offer of realigning with the ops. So maybe there's something there too. But on top of that match, I think we'll probably get some catch-all like 8-man tag team match to get some other people on the payday. And I'd like to see at least one more singles grudge match added. I don't know what, because like you can't do the grudge match with FTR. They've done that. It was a great match on Collision, but they're probably not going to repeat it. I'd like to see something get added to the show that's really heavy, you know? I'd like to see someone who hasn't been spotlighted get a spotlight.
Really established anything else though as like that kind of match. Like all those matches are kind of there. The only other thing they've probably been establishing is that involves MJF and Mark Briscoe are probably going to go in a feud post All In, like an actual like real feud between them. And then MJF is also feuding with Mystico. No, I think most of that will take place in CMLL. Other than that, there aren't all the kind of big singles feuds have already been very much set up for All In, because the only other real choice would be something to do with Willow, Chris, Statlander, and Marina Shafir, but they're probably all going to be in the Gauntlet match, or at least two of them are going to be in the Gauntlet match. We know Chris Statlander definitely is, so yeah, it's just difficult to find any other option really of a feud that's been going long enough to merit featuring on this show that you couldn't just throw a load of good guys and girls into the respective Gauntlet matches.
Yeah, I'm thinking kind of like what was just brought up earlier, another like all-star 8-man tag or something where it's going to be like Roosh and Drilistico and Outrunners and Top Flight, or like different people along those lines just sort of popping up, like maybe holograms in there, or maybe blanket on some of the other people that aren't on this card that actually are, because a lot of people that actually aren't on this card are people that like I wouldn't anticipate to see in any fashion. Like we haven't seen Ortiz in God knows how long. I just don't count him anymore. And like Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, I don't know what they're doing.
Oh, they're legit. They're free.
Are they not even in the company anymore?
Yeah, Bennett posted that he was accepting bookings like a week or two ago.
Man, these companies really need to start like actually saying when people are released, because I probably have so many people on my roster page that aren't on the roster anymore. Like Tony Nese, or
I think he's still with the company.
Saddam Singh,
AEW is better. Yeah, he's still there too. AEW is better about like actually removing people from the roster page when they're gone. Yeah,
but they're just bad at adding people to the roster page. So then you'd never really know. And then it becomes a matter of like, Michael Nakazawa, where you're like, yeah, he was in the company. Is he in there? Is he not? Is he backstage? Is he still in some fashion on a performer thing? Is like it's one of those kind of things. Both companies really need to step up their game and really fix their websites. But yeah, like I would be surprised if Aaron Solo got onto this card, but I would be shocked if at the same time the Beast Mortos didn't get on the card. So either he's in the Gauntlet or he's in some kind of a tag match on the pre-show or, whatever it might be. I guess that's worth talking about the Gauntlet match and just kind of getting into that, because we do know there is the potential for people to pop up there, and that could be a factor in figuring out the rest of the card. The men's and the women's casino gauntlets, as we said, right now it's only guaranteed that MJF and Mark Briscoe start off the men's, and Mystico is somewhere in the mix there, unless the match would end early, but I highly doubt they're ever going to have a gauntlet match end in the first thing. And then Statlander is the only one.
It'll be a TV one, but they'll have it. Yeah, they'll do it at one point, yeah.
Just for the sake of it?
Yeah.
Just to show that it can happen.
Yeah. I mean, anything can happen, and you want to make sure that that does happen. We've had matches end during commercial breaks and stuff too. Statlander and all, when it comes to the most likely Willow Nightingale's in there, most likely Athena's in there, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just going to spoil what I think the other two matches are. I think Mercedes Moné is beating Timeless Toni Storm, and I think that Moxley's retaining over Hangman Page. I'm not 100%, of course, on anything, but I'm close to 100% on Mercedes, and I'm about 75% on Moxley. By proxy of that, I'm looking at the Gauntlet matches, and I'm thinking, who can you set up to fight those two? Mercedes will not lose the title to whoever wins the Gauntlet.
You don't know that.
I'm fairly certain. So I'm looking at that and I'm going, all right, this is just somebody she can beat. And Statlander is a good option for that. Somebody like a Willow is, somebody like an Athena is. There's nobody that stands out to me as like a big surprise that I'm aware of that could pop up for the women's casino gauntlet. But I'm not as sold as I was a few weeks ago, but I'm still in the camp of, I think Darby Allin is coming into the men's casino gauntlet and winning that.
I think there's a very good chance of that. I'll get to some surprises first. I think this is where you return Chris Jericho. I think this is your quarterly Big Boom AJ appearance.
Ooh.
Have a cookie. Shit, I think if you ever wanted to, not that I'm saying I want to see this, but if you ever wanted to have Paul White wrestle again, it's in a situation like this where he can come in and just punch somebody. And hey, Paul White got to do something on a big show, no pun. Keith Lee occasionally tweets that he's healthy and ready to go. I'd love to see that. Over on the women's side, if there's ever a fucking time to bring back the Doctor, it's probably this show, given all of the talk around her status. So if there was ever time to bring back Britt Baker, I think it's here. Alex Windsor will be here. She's not announced, but she'll be in this match.
Who's Alex Windsor?
The one of the newest signings, like a British.
The one they've been showing the vignettes.
British women's star. She's Will Ospreay's fiance.
And
okay, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I think she'll be here. Didn't somebody just leave Stardom recently?
Fury took a excursion away. Is taking the excursion away from Stardom, so there's a good chance if she's come to the US, she'd be in this match.
Yeah, I could see that absolutely happening. In terms of winners, it's really interesting because you're saying that there's no way you can see whomever wins this beating Mercedes, but like this is a Money in the Bank scenario, is it not?
I don't know.
It was last year.
They haven't clarified. It was last year, but we also need to caveat that with the idea that last year sucked in terms of the Gauntlet match. Great. The follow-up from that sucked. So they need to think of a better way of doing it. At the moment, it just says Gauntlet matches for a future World Championship match. So they need to clarify whether that is a announce like the spur of the moment thing, or whether it is a case of they'll just get a title shot in the future. I'm totally down with the idea of like a thing that you kind of cash in, but do it with a week's notice. Like you can prey on a slightly injured champion just to add a bit of jeopardy to it. But I don't. But yeah, the Money in the Bank thing is something that AEW shouldn't lean into.
Yeah, I mean, Money in the Bank in general is a very played out concept, and it's mostly played out because everyone tries to do it in the same method, and it's very silly. Callum mentioned him. Where the fuck is Jack Perry? I'd love to see him pop up and do something. There's a lot of names. I think win wise, I can see it going to maybe Darby, but I think here's the thing. I think you're in a shitty situation if Darby Allin wins, because then everybody's going, oh fuck, Moxley's probably gonna win.
That's what's giving me a little pause. Plus, I didn't factor in the idea that in my mind, when I was like mostly harping on that concept, I was like, oh, well then, he gets a match at the next pay-per-view. I didn't realize at the time that Forbidden Door is the next pay-per-view. And then after that, it's All Out. And All Out's not until September. So I'm like, maybe it's not Darby Allin. Maybe it ends up being somebody that you could just feed to Moxley in the same way. And then Darby Allin pops up another time in between then. And then, it sets up something for September or whatever it might be. Because I don't think we're going to get... Again, I do think that Moxley's retaining. And I don't think that he would be dropping the title at Forbidden Door. So he's either dropping it at All Out or afterward. Or he's dropping it here. I mean, it's definitely a possibility that Hangman Page wins. But if there's any truth to the idea that it wasn't even decided if Will Ospreay or Hangman would win the Owen Hart to fight for this championship, then I don't think it was necessarily like, okay, well, the plan is this person beats Moxley at this show. So
I think you have a very fluid situation there, though, because Hangman is so far and away the main character now that people are going to be very upset if Hangman doesn't win. And this is one of those shows where, we keep comparing it to Mania. I don't like WrestleManias that end with, and the heel won
and retained.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. If we're going preference, I'm definitely preferring if Hangman wins.
I'll spoil this right now. I think Hangman's winning, but I think the smart thing here is to have someone who can provide a good threat to either man. And I'd love to see someone like Jay White win. I'd love to see him come back and win. He can be plugged right into that story. But the smart money says it's just Max.
There's something to be said about if this is a Money in the Bank type thing.
That MJF,
he would be the guy that would carry it around.
And he's the guy who maybe leaves Texas with the title. Maybe it's a fuck you, Hangman.
It could be. I like that I don't fully know exactly,
No, a lot of these matches are quite unpredictable, so that's the way that it's been booked up quite well. In terms of like the men's Gauntlet match, I do think MJF is probably the favourite because there's a lot revolving around him right now. He has an inbuilt story with Hangman if Hangman was to win the title. Jay White is a good one as well because, again, if you do have... He obviously would work well with Mox, but if you have Hangman win the title, they've told the story earlier this year that... late last year, actually, that Hangman can't beat Jay White. And so if you have Jay White holding a title shot over his head, it's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm obviously going to win the title because you can't beat me. So there's a lot of moving parts there. Like, in terms of returns, Darby Allin is obviously a big one. I'd love to see Orange Cassidy come back if he's available.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen him in a while. I think you'll probably see guys like, obviously, Cash will probably be in this match, but there's no chance of him winning 'cause he's going to go do the G1. Same with a lot of other guys. There might be some Ring of Honor representation in it as well, depending on what things going on. Eddie Kingston, if he's available, would be great.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And you know, you could just like throw someone in to have a fun time, like a Nigel McGuinness. Maybe this is where Copeland comes back. I know it's outside of the FTR story, but you might just come back to, okay, I'm just gonna come back here for this, try and get a World Championship opportunity, and then if I fail at that, come back on Dynamite or Collision and say, okay, I came back for that, missed out on my opportunity, but now I'm here for FTR, and then can move on with that story.
Could even be somebody for setting up Forbidden Door too. You could throw in like a New Japan guy, could win the Casino Gauntlet or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it depends really, because you'd kind of want someone around that's going to show it off, and obviously all the guys pretty much in New Japan are going to be tied up with G1 for the next month and a half, so it means that they wouldn't really have any time to appear on Dynamite outside of like DTs and stuff like that. But yeah, it is an interesting proposition. The women's one is also very interesting because you could have the likes of Alex Winter, Shiori, don't know any other people like from Ring of Honor. There's no one standing out in terms of like, oh, this person will definitely make a shock debut, but we know they have the working relationship with Stardom, so if any of them are available to come in, there could be a potential for one or more to show up. You have the likes of Athena and Thunder Rosa and like Mina Shirakawa. There's a lot of potential for that, and there's less pressure on the women's one because I kind of agree with Toni in the sense that if Mercedes does win the title, it's unlikely she'd be dropping it soon. But then again, the person that because the vagueness of a future title shot means that the person that wins this might not end up challenging for the title until next year. We don't know. So it's like you could have a lot of moving parts there. I'd love to see Willow win this, just because it's a big moment for her, and I think she needs to get some big moments on big shows just to help move her along to that inevitable world title win. And I think that she is the person, if Mercedes does end up holding the world title after this, she's the tailor-made person to win the title from her. So this could help give her some momentum in that direction. But we don't know where her kind of the long-term story for her or short-term plays between her, Chris Statlander, Marina Shafir. There's a lot going on, which is good because there should be a lot going on in the women's division as well. Yeah, so it's very hard to predict either one, which is a fun thing. It's hard to even predict who's going to be in it. One thing I would say that I think is going to happen in the men's one is that the match is going to end while Anthony Bowens is making his entrance. Or before Anthony Bowens comes in.
Why that?
Because they're telling a big story of him. Like, he is desperate to win stuff, and he's getting frustrated with Billy Gunn. He's getting frustrated with his whole situation. So if you tell a story of him, like, either he's the guy that's supposed to come out next, or it's during his entrance that the match ends, that just fuels his frustration, and then he probably ends up kicking the shit out of Billy Gunn and turning full-blown heel. I say, I don't know whether that's like would lead to like a big moment for him or like a big future for him, but that's definitely the direction they're going. So I'm just waiting until that keg explodes. I mean, we haven't even mentioned guys like Ricochet and stuff like that in these matches as well. Like, there's so much potential talent, and the fact is that we can obviously say loads of different names, but the Gauntlet matches are restricted to 21 people each. We know that the maximum number of people that's going to be in this match is 21. So yeah, we'll just have to see how it falls, really. But just going kind of like against saying that Rob mentioned, like, and yeah, we'd all like to see some fun returns, and there's a lot of great people that we'd want to see come back, like whether it is like Jericho, Orange Cassidy, Copeland, Kingston, all these people. I think that I would personally like to see somebody who is working regularly and has been on TV for the last couple of months win this, because I can only speak for myself, but I think AEW has really hit a stride this year that it hasn't seen since about 21, 22 in terms of just consistency on television performance. And I think you need to reward people that have been at the heart of that rising goodwill and that momentum that they've generated. And so just throwing it on just a guy that's just hasn't been around for a little while and coming back, yeah, definitely reintroduce them in this match. But I think you should use this as an opportunity to celebrate somebody that's been doing great stuff now. And I'd say it could just be like a fairly routine throwaway title defense, but it means something for the person that wins it to win a big match on this show. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's nice that it's so open ended, but if you're asking just for like straight up prediction, I do think MJF is winning the men's one, and I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna go Willow for the women's one, just because that's the one I'd like to see happen. And I've got no real bearing on anything that's more or less likely than that. So,
yeah, I didn't say my pick for the women. I think it's either Willow or Athena, and I think either woman is definitely defeating Mercedes
to already win the women's world title. Like she wins the women's world title, then she just drops it.
No, I don't mean immediately. I mean, Willow can pick Grand Slam in her backyard. Athena can pick, 10 months from now. Like, I just think that's the course of action. And I think, by the way, I'll say this too. I think, especially if Athena loses to Thunder Rosa, which I'd like to see happen because I want Athena out of RH and on AEW.
Do you think that that's actually like a good chance that could happen? Because I'm so not tapped into ROH that I'm just like, Athena retains forever.
One is, but no one is. That's the whole thing. Is like, why isn't it? Why can't Takeshita be the Ring of Honor World Champion in the G1? Why can't Thunder Rosa just win the title in our home state of Texas? Like, Ring of Honor doesn't matter right now. Like, just do it. That's my take on ROH. And I think, gun to my head, I'd go Willow, but I'd like to see Athena finally free and focused on the AEW scene.
There's also something to be said about if Mercedes does win that world title, what do they do with a TBS title? Because you can't just keep every single thing on Mercedes and have her just be the only thing that this entire division revolves around, and then she defends both titles separately forever. Like, you gotta get something to somebody else at some point. And they don't seem to have any kind of rules that they've ever done in place where it's like, if you win, for instance, in NXT, typically in NXT, if you win 2 titles, they give you a week or so, and then they go, yeah, but you got to get rid of one of them. And in AEW, it's just like, well, you just have multiple championships. That's what it is. So if Mercedes does win that other championship and she's just holding both singles women's titles, at some point she's got to drop one of them. And you would assume that it would be the TBS title. But how do you do that without it being too obvious that she's not just, you can't have the women's casino gauntlet winner be like, and I want to challenge for the TBS title, because then that's going to be the same issue with this Money in the Bank that people don't like when they challenge for the United States title.
At some point, she's going to lose that title in the same way she's going to lose all her titles eventually. But I think the story with her, if we get onto that, obviously we'll talk more about that when we get to the actual match, but the story with her, I think, is that she'll eventually get overconfident and start burning herself out with too many title defenses across the globe with all the titles that she holds. And so she'll start losing them. I think she'll lose a lot of them in quick succession.
That's usually what happens, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, she just goes, you tell the story that like she starts defending every title often and she's just like so confident, but eventually she's starting getting tired, starting getting fatigued, and then she loses one of them and that sends her on a bit of a downward spiral until the last title she's left with is probably the AEW Women's World title. So you just tell that story for a little while, and it's an easy one to tell in the sense that, you just get to a point where, it's just too much, and she just can't hold on to that burden, and just like, everyone can go through like a bad patch of form if you're looking at it from a sports-based lens. So I think that's the story they'll tell. She'll hold both titles for a couple of months, and then she'll lose one of her titles, whether it's the TBS title or one of the other multiple championships she holds, and then that just sends her on a bit of a rocky road. I could definitely see her losing the TBS title to just some, I don't say random, but just, like an Aminata or a Fekla or someone like that on an episode of Dynamite or Collision that just had a bit of shock value to it. I know it would be a bit weird because, like, that'd be her first loss on AEW TV, but I think there's still, you can do that. You've established her as, like, a super strong person now, and you could argue that that would mean a lot more to an Aminata or a Ty Mello or someone like that winning the TBS championship and handing Mercedes her first loss in AEW than it would to Willow Nightingale winning or Chris Statlander winning the world title with the first loss to first person to defeat Mercedes, because they're already very well established names in AEW.
Well, about that match, because we might as well talk about it, I'm definitely going Mercedes beats Toni Storm. That's the one out of everything that's on this card, the one thing that I'm like, yeah, there's no way that I'm going in a different direction than that.
The only way we go in a different direction is if Tony Khan is just that in love with the Toni Storm character. Because this is only the biggest match in AEW history from the perspective of these are the two highest, most pushed women on the roster. And I mean, it's a lock for Mercedes to me. But Toni Storm has kind of reached that level in AEW of you can't really count her out. Should be a fun match, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited for the match itself, because I think that Mercedes has hit her stride in the last year where she's really, there's very rarely does she put out a poor performance, and Toni Storm can definitely live up to that billing as well. I think that definitely the likely outcome is Mercedes wins. The only way that I can see Toni winning is that they're going to do some sort of shock title change on Dynamite immediately afterwards to someone else who they want to immediately give this rocket to, of a case of, oh my god, she beat Mercedes and she won the biggest women's match in history, and then she immediately comes crashing down to earth, losing to whether they have someone lined up to debut or whether it's just like someone that they want to just give the momentum to immediately. It could be like Marina Shafir or someone like that, someone that they've featured a lot but haven't given a title to. So that's the only thing I can see happening, because if Toni was to win this match, that's kind of just the zenith of her reign. There's really no other thing that she can do to go up from this point. So she needs to be brought crashing down immediately. But I think the likelihood is you have Mercedes win, she's doing the belt collector gimmick, she gets to pose with all those championships around her. And then you just tell the story, as I mentioned earlier, where you just gradually start seeing her maybe lose like 3 or 4 of those titles in a 2-3 week period, where she's just like losing momentum, and then she maybe becomes a bit more, I guess, precious about when she gives title defenses. You can tell that sort of giving, like, she loses so many titles after being so confident and so assured about she can just win anything, she's invincible. And then when she slowly starts losing them, or losing them in a short span of time, then she's like, oh, okay, I might want to keep hold of this one for a little while longer, so I might be a bit choosy about when I defend it. So I'd say there's a lot you can do with that gimmick. So I think that, yes, I think the likelihood and one that offers the more possibilities moving forward is Mercedes winning the title.
And when it comes to the Texas Death match, since we already broke down a good portion of that, I would prefer if Moxley loses the title here, because I think that story of Darby Allin beating Jon Moxley is not interesting enough to justify it. And, a Texas Death match is a great way in Texas for Hangman, of all people, to beat Moxley. Like, it writes itself in a lot of ways. And he is the main character. He is the guy that I feel like they should go back to as like a reset every couple of years or so. And it sets up the MJF thing again. Like, he should be the main villain character. And That's my preference, but I feel like Moxley's going to retain it. And yeah, I don't have any money betting on this, but I'm going to go Moxley retains somehow.
Maybe it's because I'm more tuned into the sickos than you are. But like, I don't want that fucking air of negativity around this company and this scene. AEW fans are unlike any wrestling fans from the past. AEW fans, there's a lot of new wrestling fans who just straight up, they love their kind of goofy, kind of silly, you know, a little anxious millennial, slightly gay cowboy, and they want him to be the one to beat Moxley. And more importantly than that, and maybe more importantly from the company perspective, does this symbolically close the door forever on the Punk era? Because Hangman Page has not been world champion since losing it to CM Punk, and that feels like a lifetime ago. And maybe giving the belt back to him and letting him have a new run in this new era, it closes a chapter in a really good way for this company. To hold the door for Darby, I think is a mistake. And to be fair, it could have been Will as well. Like, Will could have also signified a new era. I think it would have made the tag match we're going to talk about later make a little more sense. But Hangman needs to win, or you're going to have WrestleMania 39 vibes. And no one wants that, except maybe even worse with this company, because this company still is built on a lot of like, I trust that you're not like the other place. He needs to win.
I think that there's just multiple things in play, which mean for me that I think it's not a certainty that Hangman wins the title, but makes it extremely more likely than the alternative. I think AEW is in such a place right now where the vibes are so strong, they're so good, they're so much better than they've been for a while, that you don't want something to rock the boat too much. And even if it makes more, I'd say even if it depends on how kind of stubborn a booker Tony Khan is, and there are signs to say that he is quite stubborn when it comes to this stuff. And maybe the idea or the story eventually would have been, okay, Moxley drops the title to Darby Allin because that's the thing that we told from the beginning of, like, take Darby Allin out and he comes back in a blaze of glory and wins it back. But I think you just have to pivot with the environment and what things have changed. And since then, since you have made Hangman like the main character again, since you've went with him in the Owen Hart tournament and made such a big deal out of this, and the way they've built it feels like it's such an ending. Like, it feels like such a huge deal that he wins the title here and he draws the line under Death Riders, and you can use this to bring back the World Championship and hoist it up and show that in front of everyone. I think it's just the nature of this show and the nature of the entire atmosphere surrounding AEW right now, that having Moxley retain the title can absolutely jeopardize a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And it's whether you feel like you have the end result has to be that if you don't have Hangman win the title here, you need to have something better lined up. And if you're not confident in the thing that you would alternatively do is big enough, then you just change the title here, because even if you have like a really great feud idea or a great build up towards, I know, Darby Allin versus Moxley All Out or wherever you end up doing it, it's a case of is the build up to that and the moment of Darby winning because you know he's been such a beloved character over the time that hasn't won the title, does that counteract the negative reaction you're going to get if if Hangman loses his opportunity here? There is one route that I can realistically see where Moxley retains the championship, and it depends on the result of another match on this show.
So that would be Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay against
Yes.
Young Bucks. So let's talk about that then, because that's something that does have some implications for this, because the stipulation is if the Young Bucks lose, they are no longer EVPs in the sense of like, you know, in kayfabe, they won't have that kind of power. Of course, they are still going to be EVPs because, you know, it'd be insane if they just like, that's the actual contract. But if Swerve and Ospreay lose, then they can't challenge for the world title for an entire year. And this company has done things in the past where they've done the you can't do that, and it seems like it's like, okay, well, that's not going to happen. And then they did. Like, Cody Rhodes didn't end up winning that championship, and they didn't end up reneging on that. So they could go in that direction.
Learned why, pal. Like, we've since learned why. He just didn't want to win that world title. He wanted another one.
Still, it's proof that they didn't renege on it. And we got to give them credit that if they were to do that, that they would actually hold that for an entire year. Which, that makes me just go, you can't possibly be wanting to go in that direction. Like, to take your two of your top baby faces and to be like, yeah, I don't want to do a world title match with either of them in an entire year, no matter what scenario, that seems crazy to me. And it's more interesting if the EVP thing goes away anyway, because that's not even a good story. So if you keep the EVP status on the Young Bucks, for what purpose? You're taking Ospreay and Swerve out of the mix, which is a negative, because people would like to see them potentially, like, if Hangman were to win the title, people would want to see Swerve versus Hangman. You can't do that if Swerve loses. And people would be curious if, like, let's say if Hangman wins or if Moxley wins. Well, if Moxley wins, doesn't Ospreay become another major contender? And then you could do that match. Well, not if you do the whole 1 year wait period thing. And I don't think that they're in a situation where they have any kind of a setup where they can do that 1 year wait. So I'm going with the Young Bucks losing this, but it's entirely possible that they do have something in mind. And I think that that's where that comes in with what you're saying is, what if Swerve loses and then it's like, well, if I can't have the belt, then Hangman can't either. Is that kind of where you're going?
Yeah, I mean, my premise for this one is that I think this match is the most unpredictable outside of obviously the Gauntlet matches where we don't know who's necessarily going to be competing. But I think that it's equally likely that either team wins this match because of the stipulations. And I think the stipulations are very well balanced for this reason. I think that, yes, you need to eventually end this EVP storyline because I don't think it's particularly good and it definitely didn't serve the purpose that it was originally intended for. But you don't necessarily need the EVP story to end in this match. You can end it at Blood and Guts, for instance. Make that as part of a Blood and Guts stipulation. Or other instances as well. So there are multiple different ways that you can bring that storyline to an end. The alternative is that if Ospreay and Strickland lose, yes, there is obviously they are two pivotal characters in the main event scene, and so having them out of contention for your world championship, one, it could make the mid-card scene a bit more interesting because it means that they'll have to compete for mid-card titles instead, or tag teams or anything along those lines. But it also means that you lose pivotal features, and it means that maybe some of your main event matches moving forward won't have as much star power attached to it. But it is entirely plausible for this to happen because they have other people. If Hangman wins the title, that means that he'd be fighting primarily heels. So he doesn't. That means it's unlikely that he would face an Ospreay or face a babyface with Strickland. So it's obviously potential they don't shy away from those type of matches, but it's less likely. And it means that Hangman Page is open to the likes of Takeshita, to Carl Fletcher, to Claudio if they want to go for another member of Death Riders, and Kazuchika Okada and other people to defend the championship against. There's plenty of top heels that he can defend the title against. But this route means that you just hold off Ospreay until All In next year to win the title, because that is way past the 1 year mark, because it will take place in August next year. And then Strickland would be like, he's obviously not happy with this whole arrangement in the first place. He didn't seem like he was on board with it. So if he was to lose, this would be the perfect opportunity to turn Swerve heel, have him take out Will Ospreay, launch a big feud for them, which would cover like the back end of the year, which means they don't have to be involved in the world title scene because they'll be in a blood feud with each other. And then also, as a byproduct of that, maybe take out Hangman as well, cost him the match, and then you can relaunch that feud as well if you wanted to. So it all would kind of hinge on, if they lose this match, then Strickland has to turn heel and to use the frustration of losing this to turn his back on a lot of people, which I think is definitely a route they can take. But yeah, either way, this match is very, very unpredictable. I think I'm going to go with Strickland and Ospreay because I think this is like a good feels show that they're putting on. So I don't think they want to have too many of the big matches be a super negative. But I certainly wouldn't be adverse to the idea of the Young Bucks winning if it leads to an interesting story between Swerve, Ospreay, Hangman down the line.
Yeah, I think the idea of them losing would be miserable. Not because I think
Swerve
that
and Ospreay.
yeah, Swerve and Ospreay. Not because I think that it would be terrible not to have them in the world title picture. It would be a little silly, sure. But seriously. And I'm going to go back to what I said in the Hangman match about the ending, kind of visually and metaphorically closing the chapter on all the Punk drama. Fuck this EVP story. Like, it's just not good. It was lame. I would say 60% of it for me was very lame. And I would just rather the Young Bucks spend whatever time they have left being the Young Bucks. Let's get away from the EVP thing. Maybe just in storyline, maybe on paper too. Who the hell knows? Let's get away from that. Let's kind of move on and have them just be wrestlers again for however long they have in their careers. And I think that's the way to go. I think it's similar to the Hangman Mox situation in that it's not the end of the world and you will have other options if it doesn't go the way I'm pitching, but I just think it's a more feel-good idea for them to lose, and you close the door on some rotten eras.
Yeah, we're past the point that it's been however many months. They started this whole Elite versus AEW Frontline or whatever you want to call them. Basically that same story. They started that. It didn't work. They decided that they were going to try to do the Death Riders thing. And that's been struggling even. And that's months ago. Like, that's been over a year, I think, at this point before the, when was it that the Elite had beaten up Tony Khan? You remember?
Well, they came back with they came back with the EVP gimmick in the build-up to Revolution last year.
Yeah, it was in the build-up to the Sting match.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah. I will say, like, the EVP thing definitely, I don't think has worked in any real way. It just adds this layer of, bullshit evil general manager, which again is a WWE trope that shouldn't be carried over in every promotion. Death Riders thing, I disagree. I kind of will lean to disagree with because, like it or not, this upturn in AEW's fortunes has coincided with the Death Rider story taking place. Like, you can almost trace back, not from the very start of the Death Rider story, but definitely in the last few months, like, there is a correlation with that. So I think, at the very least, if it's not been the most critically enjoyable thing that AEW have ever done, it has been one of the most, just from a pure numbers standpoint, one of their most successful angles.
I think that's one of those things where it's not a byproduct of that angle being any good, but it's a byproduct of them having a lot of talent. Like, I think if you take Ospreay and Swerve and Hangman and these like fun people out of the mix and you replace them with other baby faces that are going up against Death Riders, it doesn't translate the same.
Of course, you need the top babyface, but also those babyfaces are pretty much solely interacting with the Death Riders. So it's like you need a strong heel. You need strong heels for them to be up against as well. So
like I'd make the argument that like the Cody Roman thing worked because Cody was an interesting enough character for people to get behind, and if they would have just been like, okay, we're building towards Roman losing, but we're picking
or LA Knight.
Yeah, LA Knight's popular, but like
Yeah.
he like maybe even in his case that it would be like maybe there's not enough there, you know, like. So I'm way past the point that I want them to be closing the chapter on a lot of these things. I think that it would make a lot of sense for it to be like All In is another reset. It closes the book on the EVP thing. It closes the book not entirely on the Death Riders. It's not like they would split up and not be a group anymore. But like Death Riders can lose the trios title match if they end up doing that. And then Moxley drops the championship, and then we can just step aside from that and start telling, okay, now we're telling a Hangman story, and now we're telling the Young Bucks are doing this instead, and then, yeah, maybe freshen it up a little bit. So I'm going Swerve and Ospreay, and I'm going to be really disappointed if they go in a different direction and they have the Young Bucks retain their EVP thing here, because I just can't see where that would go. Like, what would be the purpose? Who else beats them down the line? And why do they need to control whatever they're controlling? Like, they're not even really doing anything with it. That's all that interesting anyway. So I'm at the very least, maybe my blinders are on and it's just a preference thing, but I want Swerve and Will to win. And I think that that's a good match to put on as like a good happy moment after a good heel wins. And I think that that's where you go, Kyle Fletcher beats Adam Cole for the AEW TNT title. So you get like heel, boo, new champion. Oh, okay, Swerve and Will win. That kind of thing. Which, yes, that's my full breakdown of that pretty much. Adam Cole's not been a great TNT champion. The TNT title's been like cursed for a while. I don't remember the last time that I thought that it really, really worked all that well. But it wasn't Adam Cole. And it wasn't actually, I mean, now I'm blanking on when is the last TNT champion that I actually thought was like doing a damn good job with it. Man.
The Cope Open, maybe? The Copen?
I don't know if I really liked that either. So let's see, we got Daniel Garcia, no. Jack Perry, wasn't really digging a lot of that. The Cope stuff, Christian, Luchasaurus, Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs, Wardlow, Smojo, Darby Allin, Smojo, Wardlow, Scorpio Sky we're going back to. I
think you're like being very harsh on it. Like, let's put it this way: when Christian was TNT champion, we all pretty much unanimously made him our wrestler of the year for AEW and the awards. So
it's probably Christian.
Yes, he must have been doing good with it. The reason why you don't think the Daniel Garcia one was very good is because most of Daniel Garcia's work was on Collision, which you don't watch. So
fair enough.
So he was doing good stuff there. I'm not saying it was the most like spectacular reign. I definitely don't think they capitalized on his comeback as well as they could have done, but it was good enough. I agree Jack Perry wasn't good. I agree that I don't think this Adam Cole thing is very good, but that's primarily due to the fact that I just think Adam Cole isn't at the level that he was several years ago. So I think that's kind of taking things down a notch. You need to give it to Kyle Fletcher, I think, here.
Yeah, I mean, I out of the 26 champions that have been there, I'm still not overall that impressed with the TNT title. Like, even back to like, people go, oh, the greatest TNT champion of all time, Brady Late. Okay, realistically, no. You know what I mean? Okay, I get that you're doing that for a different reason, but like, let's not do that.
People just say that. People say that because obviously we know what happened. But it's like,
right?
That's just a nice thing to say. That's a bit of a dick thing to say, Tony. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Like let me fucking save you from yourself.
I'm not saying that like that should be like, make fun of the guy or,
I know what
downgrade him
you're
or
saying,
something.
but the rest
But
of
it's
the
like,
world might not. Let me
it's the
fucking
type
stop
of
you.
thing that across the board, I do not think that just because somebody unfortunately passes away, that immediately that makes everything so much better from what they had done.
No, in the same way, I wouldn't go to like some person's grandma's funeral and say like, "Oh, I mean, she said that one-off collar remark about somebody a couple of years ago." So maybe we should tone this down a little bit. Talk about like what's this best grandma ever wreath coming up on the sign? Clearly, she was.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're talking like best TNT title reigns, I'm not going to be like, "Oh man, that Brody Lee reign, that was easily the best." Like,
I think okay. In fairness, I have never heard anyone but Tony Khan specifically immediately following the man's tragic passing.
Oh, I've heard it here and there over the years. Like even, like last year or so, it'd be like, great TNT champions like Brody Lee. And I'm like, relax, like I get it. Honor the guy. But like, I don't think that that's quite the same. And like, I hated the Wardlow stuff, like trading back and forth between the whole Wardlow, Joe, Hobbs, like all that run. Like overall, I don't think that this TNT title's been all that fantastic. And I'd like to see more of a return to form about it being just like a damn good title. And it's reached a point now, especially with like the international and the continental championships, where I'm like, all right, it's a definitive number 3. And now that they're going to unify these titles even more so, I'm like, this is literally the TV championship. And it's even named after the TV network. TV titles are not as good as the Intercontinental title. Never have been, almost never will be. You have to find like rare examples, I think, for you to be like, okay, and this time the TV champion was actually more entertaining. And I'm like, man, if you're going to get a TV champion, I want somebody like a Kyle Fletcher. I don't think Adam Cole's the guy to keep it.
Yeah, look, I love Adam Cole. I hate that the modern, like, I hate the way he's now perceived. I can't complain too much about the presentation, but it's very obvious that the fandom at large has moved on from Cole. Kyle Fletcher's winning. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I think Garcia might even help him potentially, and maybe join the Don Callis family. I don't know if I want that, but I think it's definitely a possibility.
I hope not, because they have more than enough people already.
Yeah, but I think it's Fletcher all the way. I wonder if he'll you know how they used to customize it? I wonder if they'll give it like a pink strap, because he's all about that pink ring gear now. I think this belt could be good. It just, all the reigns have kind of been lackluster. Outside of when people like Cody, Darby, Samoa Joe, Brody held it, when it was just literally the second belt the company had made. So I think you have to establish an identity for the belt. I think Copeland did an okay job with that, with the open challenge thing. I think there should have been more of that here. And maybe Fletcher can establish it as the Rising Star Championship.
Ideally, that's what it would be. Because if it is a TV title, it should be defended regularly on TV. And it should be mostly just like, here's good matches. Kind of the way that the international title was when Orange Cassidy was doing the open challenges too. And I think Fletcher is one of those, like, you can't go wrong with Fletcher. He's proven himself in the ring so well that, like, if you want to do Kyle Fletcher versus AR Fox on an episode, it's like, okay, well, then he beats AR Fox, but it's a good match. Oh, you want to do a little bit more of a build-up for him against Kota Ibushi? Okay, well, then maybe Kota Ibushi can beat him. Maybe not. But it's going to be a good match. You know, like that kind of thing. Far cry from when I was saying before, I don't understand why Kyle Fletcher is the ROH
TV
champion, and like I'm not seeing it. And then eventually I'm like, okay.
And then he has a cage match with Will Ospreay that like is mind-bendingly great. Yeah, Kyle Fletcher's great. I want more from Adam Cole. Obviously it's he's one of my favorite wrestlers. I'd like to see him, get at least one more run in the sun that doesn't revolve around Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
I'm going to come back to this in a moment, but first I want to hear what Calum's got for this.
I was going to say that I've already kind of spoken my piece about this match. I think that it's just obvious the Fletcher wins, and I don't want to be like the guy who said that that he was going to be a world champion and like one of the biggest stars in wrestling one day. That's the trajectory that he's on. I think many people have seen that far before I did, but yeah, I think that he needs this, and we need to have the TNT Championship defended regularly. And I think it is not about defended regularly, but it's featured regularly. It's just the TNT title has become the title of Collision, and you can kind of understand why, because Collision's on TNT. It's not TNT. So realistically, I think, and it's not saying that like people are wrong with the interpretation that the title hasn't been like overall like great all the time. I do think that they sometimes lose momentum a bit in title defenses, but to really appreciate the TNT title and the TNT champion, you do have to watch Collision.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a blind spot for me. But then again, I always never get like the sense that I need to watch Collision just because of the way that they book it. Because whenever I'm doing my like spoilers breakdown or my like lineup of the matches, it always feels like it's so last minute. Just okay, well, who do we have available? We're just going to do this kind of. And then go ahead.
It's the wrestling show, and it's the case of like I think that Collision has become, and I think this is a good thing, just from my own perspective. Collision has become the parent of Dark and Dark Elevation in a strange way. It's like, okay, it's not a case of, I don't think it's like random throw people together, but it's a case of, okay, we're going to showcase, it's a good place to showcase some new people, put some just damn good matches together without any real sort of major storyline involvement necessarily having to hamper the choices that we make. I think it's probably like an heir apparent to the likes of like WCW Saturday Night stuff that they would previously do, which is like, okay, you might have one or two squash matches in there, and then you'll have one or two like big awesome matches. I mean, this Rita Collision is a good example of that, because you had, I mean, actually, to be fair, this week's Collision was probably one of the biggest ones they've done in recent times, but you had that FTR Outrunners match that was great. They'd been building that, like simmering that feud for a little while. Had like an all-star 8-woman tag match as a showpiece for the Casino Gauntlet that's coming up, and then you also had the Cole Fletcher, Daniel Garcia number one contenders match for the TNT title. So it's like, okay, these are just, they're big matches, and some of them had a bit more storyline involvement. But I think realistically, you don't necessarily have to watch Collision to keep up with the storylines. Mm-hmm. In the same way, you realistically don't have to watch a lot of, like, you don't have to watch a Saturday Night's Main Event or a lot of other sort of like, again, it's the same for a lot of shows. I don't think it's absolutely essential viewing, like Dynamite is the essential viewing of AEW. But I think that it's definitely not a, it's definitely something that it's not a Dark and Dark Elevation in that you absolutely can skip it and it means absolutely nothing to you. I think
it's in between.
Yeah, you do miss something, but it's not for the absolute completionist. Like if you only have time to watch an AEW show, where you watch Dynamite. But
yeah, there's a big difference between what Collision does compared to Dark and Rampage, but it's definitely not SmackDown.
Oh yeah,
and like SmackDown having the brand split makes it to where it is basically the other show, and they're on par with each other, even though Raw is always going to seem like it's slightly higher up just because it's been around longer and all. You do have to watch SmackDown or else you have no idea what's going on for half the roster. Whereas Collision does sort of feel like, okay, well, we do have these guys from CMLL and we're going to throw a trios match in there and that's it. And then don't you want to watch Powerhouse Hobbs versus Trent Beretta? Well, if you do, then you've got that. But if you don't, it's probably not going to factor in whatsoever. And that's where the disconnect comes in with me, where I go like, okay, well, if I don't need to watch it, then I'm not going to. And then if they do sprinkle in some other storyline things, it's kind of few and far between. So when like Adam Cole's fighting and defending the title against Beast Mortos and I don't know, Anthony Ogogo or whatever the hell. I don't remember the last time that he ever had a match, but like if he has a bunch of series of matches that ultimately don't really move the needle and people don't talk about it enough for me to want to watch it, then to me it's almost a non-existent title reign, the way that if somebody were to have a title reign on Main Event would be. And I really want to see Kyle Fletcher do something more with like bringing that more on Dynamite or making me feel like I need to watch Collision, you know?
I'd like to also say that in my desire to see more from Adam Cole, because I thought this would be it. I thought the prestige that Cole has can bring to the championship will eventually make that a must-see belt, even if it's on Collision. At this point, I think I'd like to see him transition into Paragon hold the trios titles. They just have random fun trios matches on Dynamite or Collision or pay-per-view. And you give that championship a boost as well.
That's definitely a level that I think that they could definitely be more involved in. I think that, yeah, I mean, realistically, the idea is that Kyle Fletcher should win this match, and that like I think he'll be a great TNT champion in just the match quality that he can bring with the guys that are doing some great stuff right now. And, you know, that will involve title matches against people that he's obviously going to beat, like an AR Fox or a Beast Mortos or someone like that. Obviously, he's going to win a lot of those matches, but it's just the quality that he delivers that's going to help him stand out and make this title feel great again. But I will just have to carry that by saying, if you do want to get the full experience of this TNT title, you will have to watch Collision, or at least watch matches on Collision, because that's where this title lives, pretty much.
Yeah, the topic I wanted to get back to that popped in my brain. Where would you do an equivalent of Adam Cole's positioning right now compared to somebody from like WWF going to WCW or vice versa? Like, obviously it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but there are parallels between, you know, people going to different companies and stuff. And you can take somebody like, this isn't the best example, but like you could take like an Ethan Page who wasn't doing particularly well in AEW, and he goes over to WWE and like he's doing pretty damn well in NXT. And maybe, who knows, maybe you can look in the future and go, okay, that's almost the same as like Chris Jericho going from WCW to WWF, where it clicked much better. Adam Cole going to AEW, being as big of a deal in NXT as he was, I don't know who I would necessarily equate it to, but that's why I'm posing the question to you guys. Is that like when WCW got like a Rick Martel, or like
whoa
a you know, like, because it's like it's a big name that is still just stuck in the same position that they're in, if not arguably lower. You know,
I mean, first of all, I like Rick Martel.
But Rick Martel's, you know, he's great. Like, that's not a dig against Adam Cole and saying like Rick Martel sucks. Like, Rick Martel's fun as all hell. But like, you know, Rick Rude, for instance, or like you know, and somebody that's not Rick. For some reason, I'm only thinking
Rick
of Rick.
Rude kind of levels up when he goes to WCW, because the name value, he becomes a de facto main eventer. As you pitched it, my honest to God thought was Brett.
Yeah, Brett, I was immediately the one I went to.
Yeah, like, this is the guy, this is the champion. And not to say that he hasn't had moments, like Brett had moments where he was pushed in that level, but he also wrestled Booker T for the TV title, and you're like, he was just the WWF champion. What are you doing?
I mean, fucking hell, like Bret Hart had a feud with what's his face? That the Lemons guy from like Mad TV or whatever it was.
Oh,
Will
Sasso, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, he had his low moments there, and I think the thing with Bret Hart is just it didn't feel like the right fit. I don't think Adam Cole being in AEW isn't necessarily the right fit. It's more of a case of it's just injuries have broken his body down. That's the sad truth of it, and other people have just moved past him in the pecking order, or just in terms of desirability. I think I mean, let's not forget, and it's easy to see just where he is currently right now. And I say he's TNT champion. It's not like they completely ignore him or he's not given a good
Right.
position. But it's more a fact of he did main event the biggest show that AEW has and ever will put on, probably. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think they've treated him well and they've given him plenty of things to
They
do.
treated him well, but I think it's more of like maybe it's more of the fan perception that I wouldn't be able to give a 1-to-1 comparison.
I think there's a loud fan perception that thinks that he's done, essentially, in the same way that a lot of people think that Jericho's done, and it's not the actually same.
Which is
like
that's
Cole can have better matches than Jericho still.
Yeah, it's a weird 1-to-1. But I would also throw in that same category Jay White. Like,
Yeah,
granted,
there's some backlash against a lot of performers. And I think it's arguably due to the fact that AEW has been doing so well with the crop of talent that's appearing week in, week out. If you're not part of that group, then your stock has dropped dramatically. I mean, we're speaking about like tangentially guys like or guys and girls like Britt Baker and Jay White. They're not part of this current renaissance that AEW is going through, and so naturally your stock is going to drop a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the perspective people are very, people, especially wrestling fans, it's like, what have you done for me lately? And so that will shape the perception that Adam Cole and other people currently have. And that, it overlooks a lot of stuff that they did that was good or where they were heavily featured. And also, I would say, just from like the Ethan Page comparison, and also just the Adam Cole to AEW perception, they were stars in NXT. These are guys that they would never trust to be a big deal in the big leagues. Like, if Ethan Page goes up to the main roster, he's not even cannon fodder for your world champions. He's cannon fodder for your Aleister Blacks and Rusevs. Like, that's the level we're talking about here.
See, I think that depends, because I think he could be a good right hand for Rollins in that group. Like, I think there is a world.
Yeah, but he's a pin eater for a top.
He is a pin eater, but he's he's more comparable to what Yuta is right now in the Death Riders.
Whereas, like, Adam Cole, realistically, as good as he was doing in NXT, and again, it depends on who was running at the time, but as good as he was in NXT, just his, and again, I don't like to degrade the guy for this, but just his size was always mean that there was always going to be a ceiling for him in WWE.
Right.
I don't think there wasn't that much ceiling with AEW, but it's a case of, I just think that a mixture of the inconsistency in which he's been able to appear, and I think people are just starting to have grown a bit fatigued with him because he has been a big feature on screens for 10 plus years at this point. He's just not the same as he once was. And there's nothing wrong with that. You always have to see some sort of change. And I also think that probably another reason for that, I don't want to go like a big, like, I'm trying to justify the reason why I'd say these things about Adam Cole, and it's not even probably due to the guy himself or his own performance. He seems like an absolute guy and people love him being around. But it's also a case of his act hasn't changed much.
Oh, yeah. He's plateaued.
Either. Yeah, whereas a guy like Jericho, as much as we bemoan him now, he switches his game up so many times in order to maintain a freshness. I mean, they're just doing Undisputed Era in AEW now. And that was an act that, lasted 4 or 5 plus years and arguably grew too long in the tooth in NXT. It's nice to have the nostalgia run in AEW, but it should lead to something new for him or a new development. They're just playing the hits.
I think the problem is that they're just playing the hits. Because I think there's a way you do, Undisputed Era in AEW where it's compelling. But right now they're literally just kind of going, hey, we're doing it. We're doing the thing.
And then the question just resides, is that fine for Adam Cole? Is this, like, again, he's the only one that can really dictate this stuff. Obviously, he needs to present the ideas and the company eventually books this stuff. But so it's not like it's fully down to him. But if he wants to reinvent himself or go in a different direction, then a lot of it is down to him. But if he's happy just, wrestling with his friends in the company that he prefers to be in with the people that he prefers to be around, and just doing this nostalgia run where he can just do Undisputed Era just in a different shade of paint, then that's what he'll do. So, as I say, I think there are more similarities to Brett, and also Brett's situation was that he really only got like a year or two in WCW before everything obviously fell apart for him with his injury. So we never really got to see what Brett's long-term trajectory in AEW would have been, in WCW would have been. We kind of see the starting point for him where he was still in the main event, still winning world championships, and Adam Cole, even though he didn't win the world title, fought Adam Page for the world title, fought MJF for the world title. Main event, one of the biggest shows of the year, was in the big, obviously critically panned, but big story of the Devil storyline. So he was featured in a lot of big things and still was doing stuff. And now this is probably a point where Brett's maybe 3 or 4 years into his WCW run, and he's now primarily in the United States title picture and a veteran, putting the younger guys up. In an ideal world where WCW doesn't just absolutely fall flat on its face in every single opportunity that it presents itself. But
I think there's a way, and I'll try to wrap it up, but I think there's a way that you can do that to where it doesn't feel as, there's this guy again, as Adam Cole has been feeling to a lot of people watching this show. I'll say that as well for Kyle and Roddy, but I also think that there is this weird, there's a new crop of fans who I think just look at it and go, that was an NXT thing. Let's just let's kind of pan it for that and kind of move on from these people, because we've talked about this on several podcasts. TV age is a thing. People still view Damian Priest as this hot young guy. He will always be my example for this. And the fact is, as Callum said, Adam Cole's been a main TV fixture for Ring of Honor, NXT, or AEW for the last decade. And people feel like he's long in the tooth, even though I'm pretty sure he's barely older than me. He might be, 34? So, he's still got a lot to go. And there's still many good ways to use him. But right now he feels dreadfully stale, and I hate it because he's one of my favorites.
He's 36 right now, which means that he's younger than Tony. So there's that.
I mean, he's younger than Tony, and he's younger than Damian Priest. So, there's no excuse to push this guy to the moon.
It's always about it. I say this multiple times, and don't want to hammer the point, make this an Adam Cole related podcast, but essentially, it's always TV age rather than actual age is the big.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, because I'm pretty sure we're going to transition to the tag team title match. So I'm going to make a lot of the same points.
Well, speaking of that, the tag team titles are on the line in a 3-way. And those are the Hurt Syndicate, JetSpeed, and the Patriarchy. So we talked about this a little bit before, but kind of reiterating some of the same points we said on, I believe it was the Hot Tags. The Patriarchy being thrown in here makes this more interesting, because does the Patriarchy win by pinning one of members of JetSpeed? Does the JetSpeed team end up pinning Christian or Nick Wayne? And then you take the titles off of Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin without them actually losing? Or is this just a matter of you want to throw extra people on the card, you got nothing else for them in mind, put them in that, and it still ends with the Hurt Syndicate just pinning Kevin Knight or Speedball?
I feel certain in saying that it's the former, and I want to preface this by saying I like Bobby Lashley. I've always been a fan of Lashley. I think Shelton Benjamin is one of the greatest athletes of my generation that I've ever had the privilege of watching. Callum, yay or nay, is this not another example of a former WWE act refusing to do any fucking jobs in AEW?
No, it's not.
You don't think it is?
No, because Shelton Benjamin did a job on Collision this week. He got pinned by Kevin Knight.
Granted,
and he also got pinned multiple times in the Continental Classic.
Maybe I should reframe this. Is Bobby Lashley refusing to do a job?
No, I don't think so either.
Has he lost yet?
No, but I think that's by design. I think that is the case of them. Yeah, that's the case of them deciding that he's not going to lose, as opposed to him deciding that he's not going to lose. I mean, admittedly, he's only had one singles match, I think, maybe a couple. But the only real singles match of note that he's had is against Swerve. The rest of the time he's been in a tag team with Shelton. He's only really had tag team matches. So
something feels off to me. I will admit you've properly debunked my original point, but something feels off to me with like it seems like there's a three-way here so that they can lose without losing.
There is that definite argument to be said there. I think that there's a good chance that that is the reason why they've put this together. I think there's always a delicate balancing act when you have a dominant like heel tag team or faction or champion or anything along those lines where it can become stale pretty quickly. And I think that the issue is not necessarily revolving around them, it's the overall treatment of the tag team division and the tag team championships in recent years. That's probably the bigger issue. And I think that they've just encapsulated it or have helped like exacerbate some of the complaints that people have about it. And I think those complaints are justified. But I don't see the real issue of having like setting up a team to be super dominant and then eventually lose, and it makes the team that beats them feel a bigger deal. That dilutes slightly if you do a three-way match where they only lose the title by not being pinned. But they've almost made a rod for their own backs where they made the Hurt Syndicates feel so dominant and so strong that they don't really have a tag team that's set up to beat them. So, yeah, it's this really difficult scenario where I would totally be fine with... I mean, I would have been totally fine if it was just the Hurt Syndicate and JetSpeed wins the title. Or that's the eventual long-term play. But yeah, I think that it's interesting to put Christian and Nick Wayne in and make that part of the story because you know that the long-term thing is that Christian and Nick Wayne will come to blows one way or the other, and Cage will be ousted from the Patriarchy and eventually will reform with Copeland, and they'll have their little final nostalgia run as a tag team. And by all reports, Christian's said that he doesn't want to do the reunion until he's finished his story with Nick Wayne, and that's kind of brought to a natural conclusion. So it'd be interesting. I mean, I don't think there's like it's out of the realm of possibility that they win as well. My money at the moment is going on JetSpeed, but they might do a thing where the three-way is like almost like a red herring, where you feel like it's definitely going to be a title change because they've done the three-way, so they can change the title without one of them being pinned. And the Hurt Syndicate retains, but then JetSpeed beats them on an episode of Dynamite or Collision. And to say like, yeah, so again, it's unpredictable in that respect. I think there's a good chance that all three teams can win. My money at the moment is on JetSpeed, but it's not out of the question one way or the other.
I'm starting. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, I'll go. I think you go JetSpeed if you want to try and kind of do a rapid tag team revival in this company where, you know, you put two light heavyweight guys together. They're great. They're fun. They bring back bombastic tag team matches and everybody's happy. I think you go Hurt Syndicate if you have a specific story you want to tell with them involving MJF that hasn't kind of gotten around to it. And I think you go Cage and Nick Wayne if you're using this to get the titles to FTR, to get to Edge and Christian versus FTR. Either way, regardless of who wins, FTR will be champions by Toronto because I think it's Edge and Christian, FTR in Toronto.
When's Toronto?
All Out.
So
in September.
I don't think we're getting Edge and Christian that fast.
No.
But I also don't think that the Patriarchy is winning this because, I mean, Nick Wayne does have his ROH title. So, yeah, I mean, he could have two titles, but like, I think if you put the tag titles on Christian and Nick Wayne, that just stalls the inevitable story for an unnecessary amount of time because they've been telling this same tension for months and months and months. It's gotten to a point now where it's like, I'd like to see the actual turn. And I don't think you need to now hit the reset button on, you got all the way to, 90% of the turn. And then now we have to go back and reroute and detour for another couple of months to get back to the exact same point we're at right now. Maybe Tony Khan disagrees. Maybe he's just like, yeah, I really like, edging this story to, not use a term that I really want to think about in this kind of context, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. And
It's Edge and Christian, not edging Christian.
there you go. you're edging Christian. But I could see a scenario here where the Hurt Syndicate retain by beating the Patriarchy. And it's more so what we had seen on Dynamite. And I think that whatever they do on Dynamite, I think is going to really indicate what's happening here. If they hit the beat again of you can beat us down, but we're still going to keep getting back up that JetSpeed did, then I think that the story here could be you didn't beat JetSpeed. You pinned probably Christian. I'm assuming Lashley would pin Christian in that scenario. And then Nick Wayne's like, okay, well, I'm pissed because, you lost the match for us. Or maybe they pin Nick Wayne and it's like because Christian doesn't tag in right or like some kind of thing like that. They can continue the whole split of the Patriarchy. Lashley or whoever pins one of them and JetSpeed can go, you still didn't beat us. And then you do the Hurt Syndicate versus JetSpeed 1-on-1 match or 2-on-2 match at whatever the next special is before Forbidden Door. Or, yeah, I guess it would be Forbidden Door because, Summer Blockbuster 2 or whatever the hell they would want to call the next thing. And then that's when JetSpeed beats Hurt Syndicate 1-on-1. And, obviously Shelton Benjamin probably takes the pin. Then it means more. And then it could have just been, well, we wanted the Patriarchy to be on this card. So I'm currently leaning towards Hurt Syndicate retaining here. But if they do something weird on Dynamite where it ends up being like, okay, well, obviously the Hurt Syndicate's going to lose, then, yeah. Then I might change my mind. But right now I'm going Hurt Syndicate.
I think those are definitely the two standout ones. It's most likely one of JetSpeed or Hurt Syndicate winning the match. I'd say that with the whole extension of this Christian and Nick Wayne story, I think the main reason for that is they need to tell. Well, I feel like they need to tell a more natural story that ends with Christian as the babyface at the end of it.
That's gonna be real hard.
The heel. Well, yeah, that is going to be difficult, but essentially the route they were going beforehand, where it looked like it was about to be a break, would have definitely had to be Nick Wayne as the babyface because of the way Christian was acting towards him. So I think they need to do some sort of, almost like have Christian, what they're kind of doing now, having Christian respect Nick Wayne and to see as like, okay, I've seen what he's become now and I'm not going to be as harsh towards him moving forward. And then Nick Wayne be the one that betrays him and goes on his own path or stays with the faction or however they end up going. So yeah, it may take time. We might not see the Edge and Christian union until next year, but, we do, as I know what people say, like, yeah, you're risking people's injuries and things could get in the way of that, but arguments to them would say, if you really want to see Edge and Christian, you can just go back in the archives and watch one of their matches when they were, an actual, like, top-level act rather than the nostalgia thing you'll see afterwards. So
I think
it's not the end of the world it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen. I don't think it'll be like, oh my god, brain-changing business decision if it had still happened.
You're right. Listen, I completely agree. You are right. It is not game-changing business. It's annoying because of the fact that it's always preceded with the same, oh, we're definitely going to get to it. We got so much time. It's just wait for the right story, guy. That's the part that for me drives me nuts. Like the whole, oh, we'll definitely get to, because if they said what you're saying right now, hey, listen, maybe, but honestly, if you really want to see it, just watch all of the things we did when we were together. That's one thing. But when you're constantly like, hey, in time, hey, it's coming, that's the part where I get annoyed.
I get annoyed more so when they say, we all know that you want to get there, we want to get there, but we're telling this other story in the meantime. And then that story, not saying that this one particularly, but like it happens a lot in WWE where it'll be like, no, we need to tell these other stories first. And you're like, yeah, but those stories suck. And they're dragging on for way too long. And you could tell those stories in a 3-month period and you're doing it for a 7-month period. And now you're dragging it out and it's not even worth it. And then now you no longer have the ability to do it. Like, I always go back to the 4 horsewomen thing, and I'm like, you had momentum there. You could have just done the 4 horsewomen versus the other 4, and it would have already just been great. And instead you were like, let's wait. And then you're like, yeah, but now Duke and Shafir have lost all their momentum, and then now you don't want to do it. And then now they're gone, and now you can't. And you could have just done it, and it would have been good. And you were like, let's wait and do shit and ruin it first. And then you're like, fuck you, you know? Like, I'd rather them have just done Sting versus Undertaker than to say, we'll come back around to it in a couple of years if we think so. And then they never got an opportunity to do it.
And I think that there's elements of that here where you look at it and you go, all right, Christian with the briefcase lasted way too long and ended so anticlimactically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't add anything. And there are elements of that whole, like, and what you're doing isn't really good. But on the flip side, for everything I've said, I will say I completely respect Christian for going, no, we're not just dropping the story until I get the chance to tell the right ending with Nick.
Hopefully the right ending for Adam Cole, if you guys are saying that he's the Bret Hart equivalent, is not that Goldberg has a match in AEW.
Well, at least it won't be Goldberg kicking him in the head.
Right.
We'll take care of that.
We got one more match to talk about here, and that is the Unified Championship. I hate it. The winner takes all match. It's going to unify the Continental and the International Championship, aka the International Intercontinental Championship. No, it's the unified title. We talked about it before. I hate it. I'm going to hate it forever. And Kazuchika Okada, who very few people can actually pronounce correctly. It seems like almost everybody on commentary, it just says Kazuchika, and it drives me crazy. Against Kenny Omega. Realistically, if they wanted to make this seem any bit like it continues the storyline, this should be a 2-move match. Okada should just punch Omega in the stomach one time and then pin him. But they're going to ignore that rule. And they're going to go and try to put on as good of a show as that they've done before in New Japan. I don't think it's going to be quite as good, but I think it's going to be good. And I lean more towards Okada winning and feuding in the future with Konosuke Takeshita and whoever else might be, like Okada, Swerve, Okada, Ospreay, blah, 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 whatever it might be, rather than for it to be Omega. But maybe this is more Omega, and then Omega drops that belt to Takeshita type or something. I'm at least 60-40 Okada though.
Before I give my prediction, I want to read you a quote from one Mr. Tony Khan. This was during the media call, which has been taking place while we were recording this podcast. And the question was asked by Jason Powell of ProWrestling.net about the status of the championships. To which Tony Khan says, I have never said that I'm retiring the championships. I never said that. The unified AEW championship is new to us. Never before have 2 AEW singles champions been held by the same wrestler at the same time. It's something very new. We're very proud of what we built with the International Championship and what we built with the Continental Championship, which is most closely identified with the incredible Continental Classic Tournament, which has been one of the real strong points of AEW in the past few years. The Continental Classic will absolutely be back. The lineage of this unified championship would be intact with the International Championship and the Continental Championship. I created one belt to represent not only the significance of the match and the winner-take-all nature of it, but that there would be one person carrying the lineage of these 2 titles.
So it's not even unified.
Hold on. The belt itself represents the 2 champions who have gotten us to this point. Those 2 champions remain, their lineages remain, and the champion may even choose to carry all 3 belts. I wanted to create something special around this match and defend. No, I wanted to read that just to have fun with Tony, but
because we talked about this before, and it goes back to the same thing that I had brought up before. If this is going to be both champions are separate, and you're just going to have this one belt that they're going to have, then that's beyond stupid in some ways, because then you're going to end up having at some point, okay, well, this, Mark Briscoe beats Okada for the Continental title. Why is he fighting for the Continental, not the International, or not both? And then he what belt does he grab? He just grabs the other one, and then Okada walks away with the unified belt he doesn't have anymore. And it's so unnecessarily stupid and complicated for no reason. Just get rid of the belts then.
I will say, I think the way he had described that was very complicated, but I do think he, in a roundabout way, said it's one championship. I just never said we were retiring the lineages of both. I think
that reads to me as I have no fucking clue what I want to do with this, and I want to lead. I want to say that we can do anything, because if I change my mind, then I want to be able to just be like, well, I never said such and such, Come on, Tony.
I think it's one of those situations where, yeah, there could be something really dumb that comes off the back of this. So instead, I'm just going to focus all my energy for now in just this match that's taking place between two of the greatest wrestlers of the modern generation, and two people that are engaged in arguably the greatest in-ring feud of the last decade plus. And just say, okay, this is just the next chapter in that story, and the first one in a long time to happen. So let's just see what these two can do. As I say, I'm not expecting it to be any better than the very best matches that they had against each other, but who knows? They could surprise me. If any two people can pull off the impossible and have a better match than they had at Dominion in 2017. Was it 2017, 2018?
18.
I can't remember the exact.
18.
Yeah, 18, yeah. 2018. If anyone can do that, then it is these two against each other. So let's just see how it goes. I think that, again, it's not easy to predict, because there's benefits for both guys winning. I'm leaning towards Okada, because there is just more of that inbuilt story with Takeshita that they've been leading into. It would be cool, and they have told the story of Omega being hurt going into this, and so he'll have Ibushi by his side to help deal with any interference from the Don Callis family. But I feel like having Okada win this and having Fletcher win that, you just establish, especially if you are ending or sunsetting a bit the Death Riders and the EPs, having those two win their titles helps establish the Don Callis family next big heel stable. So yeah, I'll go with Okada for now.
I also think there's a sad element of Kenny saying, hey, my in-ring career is coming to an end, and we need to enjoy it while it's happening. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they never do this again. I want them to surprise me.
You mean never Okada Omega?
Yeah, I'm willing to bet this is the last time we see them one-on-one. I want them to surprise me. I watched Dominion 2018 with Callum, and we were almost in tears by the end of that 2 or 3 Falls match. That match was one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. I would love for them to do that again. And the thing is, Omega's already had one of the best matches of the year with Gabe Kidd in January. So he can do it. I think Okada can still do it. I just don't. I worry that the legacy that they're trying to live up to is too great. That no matter what, it'll be somewhat of a letdown. I just hope there's not too much tickle butt from Don Callis. I don't know why he's here, but I don't like it. I just want Okada Omega to have a killer match, and hopefully they still do. I'm going Omega. This fucking guy should be your world champion as long as you can allow it. And if the report from Sean is true that they want this title to be at a pretty high level, you should put Omega on while you still can. Not saying Okada can't, but I feel like Okada could be around longer. Use Omega while you got him. As I've basically said with the whole Edge and Christian thing, I'm very big on that. If you can do it, just do it. You've got great talent. Use them while they're there.
So, of course, there are potentially some changes that could be taking place on Dynamite. We could get some more matches added to the card. They might just announce them sporadically, just the way that Tony Khan tweets. We're waiting
at
until
1 a.m.
Yeah.
At 1 a.m. it'll be like, by the way, we're getting Jeff Jarrett versus the Rizzler at AEW.
Right. It'll just be out of fucking nowhere. And then, just announced for the pre-show 0 hour of All in Texas. Here's 11 matches, and it'll be, the middle of the night or something like that. It could take place during Dynamite, whatever. I don't know. We'll come back around. We'll talk about any kind of adjustments on the hot tags, though. And of course, this is not the end of the pay-per-view point discussions that we're going to have, because we need to talk about the NXT Great American Bash. We need to get into the Saturday night's main event discussion. We also need to talk about Evolution, and then ROH. That's going to be part of the hot tags, but the 3 pay-per-views that are happening all at the same time of All In, that with the Saturday night's main event and Great American Bash, all Saturday. Let us know what you are excited about. Let us know what you are most interested in. What are your predictions? All that good stuff. Keep in mind, too, that all the other Smark Play stuff I mentioned before, it's all greatly appreciated. Whether you're on the $1 a month tier, the Pick Poison tier, anything in between. Or, technically even higher than the Pick Poison tier. If you want to be part of the Hall of Fan thing and be like, $100 a month or something like that, I'm not going to turn it down. That gives you like a producer credit, essentially. So keep that in mind, too. And chat it up in the Discord. And also check out the link tree that I've got at anthonymango.com to find anything that you could follow me on. Mostly at Toni Mango on those, unless it's a Smart Out Moment or Fanboys Anonymous thing. Follow Robin Callum, too.
Yeah, and before I say where to follow me, I will just say that this show is going to be a phenomenal show, and I really hope that everyone enjoys it. I'm excited for it. I'm glad we got to do a lot of AEW discussion here, just in general, but I'm excited for this, and I hope everybody enjoys it. But yeah, follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. Check out my work on Fightful.com. Check out Fightful Select. And just stay tuned, because we got so much more coming.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky with Master14. Check out the Power Rankings every single Saturday over on smartcoutmoment.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. So it'll be a busy one next week when I have to encapsulate both all Evolution, Great American Bash, and Saturday Night's Main Event in one thing, as well as all the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT stuff. So follow that along, see how that all shapes up for next week's one. Check this week's one out as well, but it'll be slightly less exciting in the build-up for it. But then you can also follow the Fantasy League, which will also be very heavily impacted by these big shows. More points up for grabs as we continue to build our way towards next year's WrestleMania, where it ends. But make sure you're following along over at the Fantasy League through Smark at the moment, or you can head straight to www.fantasyleague.com.
Okie dokie, everyone. Hot tags will come back around with that AEW discussion, but that is the all-in predictions dedicated separate podcast. And of course, keep paying attention to smarkoutmama.com, EWN, Ring Report for the live coverage, and then the post-show immediately following. So get those email alerts set up, and also stay tuned for the NXT Great American Bash discussion that we are going to be having at the end of NXT tonight. So we'll see you then. But for now, this has been another Smart Out Moment, and we're being counted out.